Now, after 68 rounds, you have accomplished the most challenging part of our Raglan top-down. Next, we will put the stitches for the sleeves on a stitch holder. I will use yarn for this task. Now, at the beginning of one round, we are starting with the front part, and that's just what we do now, working the front part, and after that we put the stitches for the sleeves on a stitch holder. I keep the marker here at the beginning of the round, and I prepared some yarn with a similar weight but different color for holding the stitches. So I knit the front part now. Up to the stitch marker for the raglan increases, and I knit one stitch more because I really divide the parts in the middle of the raglan line. Our raglan line is 2 stitches, so I take one more stitch for the front part, and now I take a leather needle, a very big needle, and I use approximately 40 centimeters of the yarn in different colors. I have also stitch holder needles. I will show you them at the second sleeve. I prefer the method with the yarn because it's more flexible and it's seldom in the way when working the rest of the sweater. So I'm putting stitch after stitch on the needle, a little fast forward now. Work every stitch onto the needle until you reach the next marker, the end of the sleeve. At the end of the sleeve you take one more stitch, again one stitch from the raglan line, now pull the yarn through and tie a knot. Not tight, but not too tightly, because you want to open that later. Okay, that's it. And I cut some of the yarn, not too shortly. So now here we are exactly under the armpit. Now you remember our sketch for the pullover. There are a few stitches to be added under the armpit for a perfect fit. The difference between the chest width and the hip width is made with a few stitches under the armpit. So just cast on 4 and 4 stitches, so 8 stitches with a loop cast on. There is a separate video for a loop cast on in our portfolio. 8 stitches with simple loop cast on, and then you continue to knit the back part of the sweater. And you see the holding of the stitches with a bit of yarn is much more flexible than a stitch holder needle here. So at the end of the back part, you work until the marker again, knit 1 stitch more, and now you put the next sleeve stitches on. I show you the technique now with a stitch holder needle, just to show you the difference, but I will later on put those stitches on a piece of yarn too. Stitch by stitch onto the needle, fast forward now. And again, 1 stitch more after the marker. Again, we are under the armpit, under the second armpit, and we cast on 8 stitches with a loop cast on. And just to demonstrate that this stitch marker needle is a little bit in the way when continuing. Not yet when working the cast on. Okay, 8 stitches with loop cast on, 5, 6, 7, 8, and continue knitting. And I place a marker here now, because now that's the round, the start of the round again. Here we go. Now this is actually the second round of the body part, and you continue with 116 rounds for the body. And don't forget to continue the pattern in the front part, and the best practice is just write down the round numbers on a sheet and cross them out whenever you finished a round. And also continue with the pattern. You will finish the 2 side cables after about 10 centimeters of the body, and the middle cable after another 10 centimeters of the body. So for knitting the first round after the loop cast on, the easiest way is just to put your needle under the crossing of the threads on the bottom of the stitch. It's no stitches actually, it's just loops before you knit them. It's becoming a stitch right now. Put your needle on bottom into the crossing of those 2 threads. So that's the picture now. You have those stitches on hold for the sleeves, and you continue with the body. You may finish the body with a rolling cuff like the neckline, but you may also repeat the cable pattern for the cuff with a 2 by 2 pattern, knit 2, purl 2, and then work the same cable pattern as you did on the body. This would be a nice fit, and I would work it over the last 16 rounds. And your homework is 116 rounds, and eventually for the body, and eventually the last 16 rounds with the same cable pattern from the body. Enjoy, and the next and last video will show you how to work the sleeves.